Well, hello again. This is Brian Copeland talking. Welcome to another edition of Copeland's Corner. If all goes well, we join a little bit later on in the segment we call Headliners on the Headlines by three distinguished comics, and we'll talk about some of the news of the week. Before we start, I want to begin, before we start with comics, I want to begin with this. We touched on this in Headliners a little bit last week, and I just want to talk a little bit more about it before we start. And that is the conviction of Jennifer and James Crumley, who are the parents of Ethan Crumley, who back in November of 2021 shot up his Michigan high school with a semi-automatic 9mm gun that his father gave him as an early Christmas present. And they were convicted of manslaughter in separate trials. And the reason they were convicted was because they knew or should have known that their son was mentally ill, yet they did nothing about it, and they gave him a gun. When you look at, since we did the show last week, I've done some reading about this case. And, when you look at the details and you see the things that this kid was texting to his friends, what he was posting in various posts on social media, what he was writing in his journal, what he made video recordings of, he was begging his parents for help. He was begging his parents to get him mental help because he was hearing voices and he couldn't deal with it anymore, is how he put it. And the last straw was on the day of the shooting, his math teacher was looking at his math homework and he had drawn pictures on it of somebody shooting somebody and bodies lying on the ground. That's what he'd drawn on his math homework. So the parents were called in for a conference with the, the principal or the school counselor, and they were called in from work, and they didn't take him out of school. The recommendation was to take him home. They didn't take him out of school. Oh, it's fine. And they went back to work. And then later on that afternoon, he got the gun and shot everybody. So killed 4 people, 4 students, and wounded 7 others. Now, this case is considered groundbreaking because it's the first time that a parent has been held liable for what it is that their child has done as far as school shootings are concerned. And I want to tell you, I applaud this. If the government is not going to do anything because of the NRA and the gun lobby to stop or at least reduce school shootings, or make it harder, for there to be school shootings, then I think that then parents should be held responsible. If your kid uses your gun, and then see, this gun wasn't secured. The gun was like in the father's bureau drawer, in his chest drawer. It was in one of the drawers in his bedroom, and the ammunition was in another drawer. He had a gun lock, but didn't use it. And it would have taken, the prosecutor in a demonstration in court showed that it would have taken 5 seconds, literally 5 seconds, to put this gun lock on. And he didn't do it, didn't bother to do it. And has a kid begging for help. And at one point, when according to Ethan, in a text to one of his friends, I asked my dad for help. I asked my dad, please get me therapy. And my dad said, suck it up. That's what he told him, suck it up. So if your kid uses your gun to commit a mass shooting, if you have left it someplace accessible, and if you did not take reasonable care to make sure that that gun was inaccessible, or if you give your child a gun and that gun ends up being used in a mass shooting, you absolutely should be charged with a crime. And so I think they're looking at like 15 years for manslaughter. I think sentencing's like next month or something. But I think that, that's one way we can do something about it. At the very least, it'll be a warning to parents to, number one, not give your kid a gun. Number two, the guns that you have and own yourself, make sure they're secured someplace where your kid can't get to them. And number three, if you have a kid that's begging you for mental help, get it for them. I mean, that's the thing I really don't get, because I'm a big advocate for mental health. I do a lot of work about suicide prevention and, depression. I have depression issues. So, if somebody says to you, I need help, I'm hearing voices, you don't say, suck it up. You say, tell me more about this, and you find somebody to help them. What parent doesn't do this? I don't get it. I just don't understand it. So I'm advocating right now. I think all 50 states should have a law that if your kid uses a gun that you did not secure properly or that you gave them and other people are killed as the result, you should be held responsible. Just my thought. This is the part of the podcast we call Headliners on the Headlines. 3 of our regulars joining us this week: Ronn Vigh, Kate Robards, Justin Lockwood. Good to see y'all.
You too.
All right, now where is everybody? Ron, you're in Vegas right now?
I am in Vegas right now. I have been all over the place in the last month. I mean, just 2 days ago, I was in Chicago and Milwaukee, and it was 25 degrees and it was snowing. So I'm happy to be here. I put this shirt on to pretend, though, that I'm in like a Hawaiian island, but it just feels like I'm going to report for duty at Trader Joe's after this, but that's okay. I am in Vegas. Yes.
Okay, Katie, you're in New York, right?
New York City, that's right.
You're home in New York City.
Very loud, so I'm sorry. I'll be muting when I'm not talking.
No, it's okay. Or you can leave it open. It's fine. It's fine, unless you got a dog yapping like mine was. I had to take her out of the room. And Justin, you were here in the Bay Area.
I am. I'm in Little Benicia, California. All
right. Now I'm going to start with this. This is why I ask you where you all are. If I can find it, am I on the right page? Yes, here we go. CNBC released a list today of what the salary is a single person needs to make annually in order to live comfortably in the 25 major American cities. And they describe living comfortably as spending 50% of what you make on lodging, on housing, and on utilities and those kinds of expenses, 30% discretionary spending, 20% for saving and investing. So I just jotted down just a handful of them. Number 1, in terms of the most expensive, New York City. Take a guess, Kate, what it takes, how much you need to make a year to live comfortably by those standards in New York City for a single person, one person. You're muted still.
I said 80,000.
Yeah, $138,570.
Mm-hmm.
That's what one person needs to make. Number 2 on the list is San Jose, California, $136,739. Jumping down to number 5, Boston is $124,966. Then San Diego at number 6 at $126,803. San Francisco's 8. I'm surprised. I expected San Francisco to be more, but there's an exodus out of San Francisco right now. So I guess rents are dropping and stuff. $119,555. Oakland, $118,768. This one surprised me. Number 16 is Honolulu. So it costs more to live in Oakland than it does to live in Honolulu. Honolulu is only $111,904. Well, like a gallon of milk in Hawaii is like, everything's got to go in from the mainland. So it's a fortune. Yeah, a gallon of milk was like $10.
Yeah.
It is. And that's really surprising to me because, my partner is from Honolulu. He's from Oahu. So we're back there 3-4 times a year. And it's one of those rare places where if you know where to go, it's much cheaper to eat out than to go to the grocery store and buy your own groceries and go home. And it always surprises me. It blows my mind. Yeah, because again, they got to bring so much in from the mainland. It's all a fortune because of the transportation and stuff. LA is 110,000, Atlanta's 107. Raleigh, North Carolina. This surprised me too. 102,000 to live in North Carolina, really?
Well, what are they? Well, Brian, say a little bit more about how they're defining comfortable.
Okay, well, again, here's what they said their criteria was. They looked at what's called the 50-30-20 formula, and they say that's how you should handle your finances, meaning 50%. Yes.
No.
Oh, you're asking a question.
I'm trying to do the math.
Grasp it. Okay, so 50% of what you earn should go towards housing, utilities, living expenses, things you have to pay for every month. And then 30% is discretionary spending. So I guess that's, entertainment and gifts, eating out, stuff like that. And then 20% is for saving and for investing.
Oh, see, that's the one that people aren't doing.
Yeah, that's the one that's the first thing to go. It's the same. We're not giving up discretionary spending. That's not happening.
Yeah, because I was trying to figure that out. So what they're doing is they're putting like 70% towards staying alive,
80%,
30% towards keeping themselves sane if they're lucky.
Yeah. Basically, that's it. Now, the place where it is that it was not on the list, but is listed just as the cheapest place in America. Take a guess. Where, in terms of major cities, where it costs the least for a single person to be comfortable for a year. Take a wild guess.
What's the capital of Mississippi?
Okay, I'll tell you, it's not Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
Not Mississippi. Kate, guess?
Milwaukee, somewhere Midwest.
Yeah.
Detroit.
Kate, you're muted again, Kate. Just unmute yourself.
Okay. Like rural Texas. I don't know.
You're the closest. Houston.
Louisiana. Houston.
Houston.
So we're saying
Houston.
not rural.
Oh,
cities.
major cities.
Yeah, major cities. Houston.
for sure.
All right.
So of the major cities in America, Houston, you can live for $75,088. You can live comfortably for a single person for a year, except for 75 grand.
That's like, remind me who wrote this, who made this?
It's CNBC. It's CNBC.
Seems a little high. Like,
Right?
You
I'm like,
think?
so by that means I haven't been living comfortably the entire time I've been in New York. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Well, are you saving 20%?
oh, definitely not. No.
Okay, well, there you go. You're not
I'm
living
doing that
comfortably.
Jim Carrey thing where I wrote a check for myself for $1 million, and any day now I should be able to cash it, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I've done that. I got one somewhere, like in a drawer somewhere that I wrote years ago, and I don't want to look at it
Not
because
good
it just makes me feel
I'm
bad.
just surprised you still have a checkbook.
I don't anymore. You guys
I
got
have to like
checkbooks?
make myself like a Venmo payment for $1 million and like text it to myself or something.
No, nobody has check. Does anybody have checkbooks anymore under the age of like?
Oh, I have
100?
tons of them. I just don't use them. But I would love to use them. And whenever you go to an old grocery store and they have a little sign and it's like, ooh, check writing stand. And where you can pull out at the cashier. I'm like, I want that. I always tell my boyfriend, let me bring I don't think they take them, but I love checks.
Okay, so what brand of buggy whip do you have? What kind of whale oil lamps do you use at your
You
house?
ride in on that bicycle with the one big wheel in front and the little wheel in the back, and you jump off it.
The thing is that I guess I'm just sort of in the middle here of all of us, but like I went to high school from 93 to 97. And especially in terms of comedy, I'm right in the middle where I'm not the old guy, but I'm not the young guy. And when I started in high school, we were writing on typewriters still,
Yeah,
So I
all right.
still move a little bit towards that generation of things. Like I love me a typewriter or a rotary phone writing by hand. I hate computers. I don't keep a calendar on my phone. If I could write a check every day, I would. Like I was raised a lot by my grandma, so I think that's part of it too. So I love all of that. The only thing that
you have a coin purse?
What? Oh my God, a coin purse. I do have a coin purse, actually. It's a Golden Girls coin purse.
Yes, I know. You would, Ron. You were born in, I think you and I are the same age, 78?
I was born in 79, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Oh man.
The only thing that I'm glad we don't have to do, Brian, is that I started comedy in the tail end of sending out VHS tapes to bookers. I'm so happy we don't have to do that. But imagine how many comics like wouldn't actually.
I did it. I did do that.
Still had to do that.
I had to do that when I started. I did that for years. Well, I had a manager who did it, who set them out, and then paying money to get them duplicated, which was a pain in the ass. And then it went to DVDs you were able to send. But now it's just so nice. They can, go to a site and they can look. Let me ask you guys this. How do you write down, for years I carried a notebook with me everywhere I went to write down jokes or just ideas or, you write stuff on napkins and then, you go home and you put them in your notebook, and I still carry one. And I had a younger comic giving me grief about it. I should be using my phone or typing stuff in my phone or whatever. What do you guys carry notebooks, or do you when you're for writing material, or how do you do it?
I did for a while. I just use the Note app now. Yeah.
So it is on your phone.
Yeah.
Hey, Kate, how about you?
I mean, I am like Ron, where I think that there is something to physically, there's like the hand body connection. And like, of course you're still doing, but I do notebooks, and then I can never keep one notebook because I'm always like running. So then I have 500 notebooks where it's not like just the one. So the notes, I have my notes in my phone, but like I don't want to use a phone.
Yeah, see, I've got some in the Notes app on my phone. I've got some things, but there's just something about, and I tend to remember it better if I
Yes.
write it out by hand. Do
Yes.
you just write set lists by hand, or do you print them out?
Yes.
Oh, so like, here's the problem with me is that I used to have a rule that my address book couldn't leave my desk because it would get lost. And I actually have currently lost my current address book and it never left my desk. So I have a big problem. And part of me is that my crazy ADHD. So like, look, I've got a notebook here. I got a notebook here.
Mm-hmm.
I've got this notebook. I've got this one right here with all my stuff in it. So none of this can leave the desk. And so I used to carry a little notebook. So now I'm in between. I go to the note section. I write like whatever comes to my mind. And then I try to take it and transfer it to one of these notebooks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do all the writing or whatever here at the desk, even though nowadays, like everything sort of writes itself on stage for me.
Yeah.
But I do have to write it out in order to remember it. And then that's why I hate trying to do stuff. I don't know about you guys, but I could be rolling and be like, great, time to slip something new in. And my cadence and my delivery always changes the first time that I do.
You have to record it. That's why you got to record it.
Yeah. But like it totally like kind of tumbles the rest of the set because I know the other stuff and I'm boom, 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 boom. So I've been having like a real struggle lately. And it's really funny. I'm sure you guys feel the same way. I don't know. New things, when you become more of a stronger and more confident comedian, things that weren't a struggle when you were new are suddenly a struggle now. You had all the it's very interesting. So, yeah.
I'm trying to put together 45 minutes for the first time in years, so I switched over 20 years ago to just doing solo plays. And so just to put together a straight set, and it's hard starting from scratch. It's really hard to start from scratch because there's stuff, it's a muscle. You got to exercise the muscle. And I've still got the performance chops, but I just, I've got to get back in that mindset. And the difference being, in the theater, it's quiet and they're there to see you specifically and they're paying attention. Whereas in a club, you're dealing with, waitresses dropping trays and blended drinks. And if you're headlining, what I always hated was the checks dropping 15 minutes before the end of your set. That they drop all the checks at the table. So you lose all their attention while they're going, okay, wait, your girl had that. Wait, hang on, give me $1. So, and that was the stuff I got to get used to again. I've been spoiled. Because in the theater, it's like, somebody takes out a candy with cellophane. So what the hell are you doing? You're messing up my concentration. There are no hecklers,
This past weekend, I was at a club. Yeah. This past weekend, I was at a club and the checks dropped. And not only did they all drop at the same time, which they should coordinate that different sections do different, drops. But the people were talking. There were a lot of groups and were talking. And at one point, I just picked up the check from the front row and I went, 20% is $11.25. There you go. Enough talking.
My rule was always I never allowed them to set groups larger than 4 in the front for that reason. Because there were a lot of groups, bachelorette parties and stuff that would want to come and sit, with 20 people that want to come sit in the front. And that's just a nightmare.
Well,
it's an absolute nightmare.
I have to take whatever it gets. As a headliner in some of these clubs, I'm lucky I do get 4 people in the whole room. So,
so you don't have that problem. There you go.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got going on. I don't know if you've been following the Georgia Trump's RICO case in Georgia and how they've been trying to disqualify Fani Willis, the prosecutor, because she had an affair with her lead prosecutor, and they're claiming a conflict of interest, and she did it for monetary gain and all this. And what basically came out in the trial was that they dated, and they everywhere they went, she paid her own check. Said her dad told her to always have your own money, so that way you're not beholden to any man. So she always paid her own way. If they went on a cruise, she reimbursed them. Everything was in cash and the whole deal. Well, the judge today has said that Trump can appeal if he wants to. He's trying to delay everything by appealing to death. He says, we can appeal if you want to, but I'm not slowing things down. I'm not stopping the trial. So I guess the question I have is, number one, do you think that Willis did anything wrong? And number two, is it weird, or do you have a problem with, and the question will be different for you, Rod, with going on a date? Do you believe that the man should pay? Is it weird for the woman to pay her part? And I don't know how it is in the gay community, in terms of who pays on a date. But I was always taught that the man always pays, unless she says, I'm taking you out somewhere. I want to take you somewhere, and she's treating you, that the man always, and that's old school. That's what I was taught. Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, a lot of things are changing, whether it's a gay or straight relationship or whatever now into like the contemporary world. I used to have an old joke about, well, there's roles of who pays for a wedding, right? Mm-hmm. And I always used to say, who pays for a gay wedding? And I'm like, oh, father of the bottom. But
so
my boyfriend and I have been together for 12 years. And 12 long years. And we still pretty much pay everything separately when we go out, too. We never really had that. We just do it like in a friend way. I'll Venmo you, you do this. If occasionally, I'll get this one, you get the next one. But our finances are all separate still. And, we'll treat each other from time to time, but nothing's ever expected. And even on our very first date, everybody paid its own way, so I don't know how other, gay people do it. But I think that's sort of old fashioned in general. And I think everybody should pay their own way now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Kate, you got a boyfriend now, but when you were single running, or during the times that you are single, do you pay your own way or do you expect to pay your own way?
I feel like we've had this conversation a lot before. And I want to say, going back to your first thing of,
Bonnie Willis,
the cost of living, and living well. Like my boyfriend is a comic who's a social worker by day. And so like before I was making a little bit more money than him, and now I'm fun employed. I was laid off. And so I'm doing freelance work and stuff. And so I'm like, even before that, I'm just like, I find it depleting to be out in restaurants. I find, having been a restaurant worker, sometimes I don't want people to fake it with me. And I find I could cook myself better food at home in my tiny apartment. And it's also like, I know this man is broke. I'm not about to expect him. That's not to say I'm trying to emasculate his ego by saying we can't eat out. But sometimes when we eat out, I'm just like, this is what I'm paying for. Like, these grocery prices are already high enough. I could get the good produce. Because I'm just like, you're broke. You don't get to enjoy a nice meal. I think sometimes he hears that and I'm like, But basically I'm like, we're poor. We can't eat out right now. But that $1 million check, I should be able to cash any day.
In which case you'll be eating out every night. So when you don't have, hang on a second. When you don't have a boyfriend, that just in general, somebody asks you out for a date, who pays?
Well, I have so many rich friends who know that like, if they're around me, they need to pay for me. And he kind of cramps my style in a lot of ways and that's usually just platonic. And I'm like, well, it's kind of rude for me to freeload and bring somebody else who can't. So then I'm like, we both can't freeload. Like, that's my thing. I'm cute. I'm at least a girl, like you can't, who's too many, can you just hang back? I'll throw you some of the food. Oh, I froze. And it's not even necessarily men, those are friends, but it's like, I think if you have more money in today's day and age with the inequities of the world, you should pay for, they say pass the Starbucks, buy the drink for the person behind you.
Yeah. Buy
the something for the friend that is broke, like even Brian, when we met and I was younger and starting out, you bought me coffee. And I had asked you, I was like, I want to know everything you know about solo shows. And you're like, you need to meet David Ford and you need to do this and you need to, and it was like, I was married to somebody rich at the time, but it's still, you know what I'm saying? But it's a nice thing. If you were in a position where you think you could throw somebody something, whether dating or not, do it. And then also learn to say thank you.
Well, you drove all the way out to me though, where you were living a little ways away from me. That's why I treated.
That was so nice.
That's why I treated.
That was so nice. But it's like, you don't expect that, but that's a nice thing. Some people are just generous and it has nothing to do with money. And I think I'm being generous by saying, we can make this humble food. Let's eat our humble pie in privacy.
We make spaghetti in the house. Justin, thoughts? When you were dating, did you pay or did you pay or was it Dutch?
I mean,
I know you're married now.
I dated for many years in the Bay Area. And in my experience and in talking with other guy friends, for better or for worse, the overwhelming number of women expect you to pay. Just like it just is. There's still a longing for both men and women for like a certain amount of classic masculinity and classic femininity. And the only reason I call it classic is because we're taught that that's what it's supposed to be. But all of that aside, like there is, in my experience, like it was very, very clear that those norms are still the norms, at least for me. And again, I'm 45. I'm sure it's not the same for people who are dating in their 20s and even 30s now. But for my generation, there's still a lot of classical stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, I got to ask my kids what they're all paired up now, but what their experiences were. So I'm curious, in terms of whether or not I'm an outlier, but there's just what I was taught. There's certain things you do. You open the door. Do you open doors?
I mean, I do all the
pull the chair out and stand up when she gets up to leave the table. I do all that stuff. I was taught all that stuff.
I was on a plane recently and I had a very minor tiff with the older lady sitting across the row from me. And she was just annoying about everything. And she turns to me, she goes, "Young man, let me give you like a life lesson or whatever. Happy wife, happy life." And I go, "I gave up on happy wife 25 years ago, lady. I don't know what, that ain't going to work here,
Boy, did you get a wrong number?
Well, so all of my friends are bisexual, and they always say like the hot one is the one that doesn't have to pay the bill.
So that's the criteria.
Where does the idea of paying the bill come from, though? Is it just this classic, like chivalrous, like romantic, like the man's the masculine one, and you should treat the lady, or is it the idea that way back in the day men made more money then?
Well, they still do.
Way back in the day,
Ron.
Like 60 years ago, you couldn't have a checking account without your husband, right? It's
that's
like.
Right. Well, even still, women make less. I mean, what is it like up to like it's up to something like 87 or 88 cents for every dollar a man makes is what a woman makes. But back in the day, yes. I mean, it was, women were pretty much, barred from certain jobs. They were secretaries or they were waitresses or they were, whatever. And they made a lot less money than men did. So I guess I'm assuming.
One time I was on a date. It was the first date. And we had a great time. We didn't talk about work. I always tried to like avoid talking about work on like first dates. And then the bill came and I reached for it and she said, "Let me get that." And I said, I don't know, that kind of thing still makes me uncomfortable. How about you get the next one? And she looked at me and said, "Justin, I was number 8 employee at Facebook." And I just threw the bill at her, like, "Here, like, you're getting all the bills."
I will tell you what I always liked is if on the first date, I don't want her to pay for it, but I do want her to reach for it. I expect to pay for it, but I'd like her. I want her to reach for it.
Sure.
That just, I don't know why. I just think, oh, that's nice.
My wife, Diana, she was an hour late to our first date and she kept texting me and she said, "For every 20 minutes that I am late, you get the most expensive glass of wine they have." And then she paid for dinner and it made such an impression on me. I was also drunk by the time she showed up. I was hammered. Absolutely hammered. But I always kind of loved and appreciated that.
You were talking about weddings, Ron, and about there being certain roles. And, the role was always that the father of the bride paid for the wedding and the father of the groom paid for the rehearsal dinner. Weddings are like ridiculous. I mean, I got a buddy who his daughter got married and it was 6 figures. I got two buddies who paid 6 figures for their daughters to get married. By the time you pay for this ridiculously priced wedding dress, and when my daughter got married, I said, "Here's the budget. Spend it however you want." The first thing I said is, "I'll pay for the first one," which she didn't like. I'll pay for
But
you
that's
the first
another
one.
thing. Why is that just some ridiculous tradition from the olden days, right? That we just like kind of like carry through. Why does it have to be that way? Everything's different now, I don't know. Like, of course, I've been with my partner for 12 years, and it seems like over the last like 3 months, every time I turn around, someone's introducing them to me to their fiance, and then I just give him a glare, like, "Fiance, you hear that?" But because we've been together for 12 years, and he doesn't want to get married, and I don't think I want to get married. I just want new furnishings in the apartment. So like that is what like I want. But like I have an idea of what I want to do for my wedding, and it doesn't involve millions of dollars or $10,000s. I want it just to be a fun, simple celebration and an opportunity to get everybody together. And that's why like weddings and holidays and things like that, it's not about the days themselves to me. It's just that we've gotten back to moving so quickly that we don't actually stop and like celebrate our loved ones and each other and the friendships and the getting together. That's why I like to like stick to those things. And something that Kate said earlier is that, yeah, like I've never expected anybody to pay for me in the past. I don't want to pay for anybody else. I'm happy to go my own way. And like, we just afford our own thing when we go out, whether it be a first date or a millionth date. But this act of like passing on kindness, there is somebody in the San Francisco community. I guess she's like a drag queen. Her name is Donna Sachet, but she's done a lot.
I know Donna. I know Donna Sachet.
She's done a lot for the community, millions and millions and millions. She's done a lot. So one day I was at a restaurant years ago. I didn't even see her there. And like, I had to go do a show and I'm getting annoyed because like, I can't find a waitress like with the check now. And she's scrambling. And it turns out they come by and they go, "Hey, that lady over there paid for you." And I look and I go, "Donna Sachet?" And she says to me, "Honey, I don't usually have the money, but right now I have. And you do a lot to keep comedy going in the Castro. So I bought your dinner tonight."
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
A random act of kindness from someone
awesome.
who I maybe have had a dozen full of sentences with through the years, And that was so nice. And that's the type of thing that I try to do like in the future to people, just that's supposed to, yeah.
Well, the thing I used to do is if I had a couple of bucks on me when I was crossing the bridge, a couple extra bucks on me, I would pay for the car behind me. I would do that on occasion, pay the toll for the car behind me.
Wow.
But now it's fast track and stuff, and it's all automated, so you can't do that. But as if I had a couple of dollars, if I was flush, if I wasn't, when it was I remember when the toll was $1. Now it's like $7, and they were going to try to raise it to 10. And, people were up in arms. So we'll back off that. I mean, it's just crazy. $10. I mean, imagine having to cross the bridge, to go to work 5 days a week. You're talking $200 a month just in tolls. I mean, that's crazy. It's ridiculous. Speaking of which, something I don't get, maybe, and I'd like your thoughts on this. You have a lot of people on the Republican Party right now. It started with, I think, Elise Stefanik, is that her name, who is dragging out what Ronald Reagan used when he ran for president in 1980. And the question he hammered over and over and over and over again, because we were in a time of high inflation and high unemployment, and it was, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And she's asked that question. So now you got all these Republican candidates asking, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Are you on crack? 4 years ago, we couldn't leave our houses. 4 years ago, you had, I watched CNN and would see, pictures from New York City of refrigerated trucks, stacked with bodies because the morgue was too full. 20 years ago was probably the worst year in my lifetime for society. So why is it that so many people, especially those who were Trump voters, are saying way better off 4 years ago? Any thoughts at all? Is there any? I mean, yes, inflation was lower because nobody was buying anything.
I will tell you, my bank account was actually better 4 years ago, but it was only because the government was paying our way and I didn't have anything to buy or spend. Right. But no, of course, we're not better than 4 years ago. First of all, Trump was president 4 years ago, still during this time. So absolutely not. And we were like miserable. And I mean, I just go back to being very personally affected by the whole COVID situation and the mismanagement of everything. So I definitely don't want to relive and don't want to think that I was better, 4 years ago, because like the money is one thing. Great. We were getting some money from our government. It was like the least they can do while they botched everything else. And so great. I had a better bank account than coming back now to inflation and stuff like that. But I don't want to relive those times because I would take this way less money to maybe have more years with my father and to have, I just feel like at the time too, a lot of us like changed our lives dramatically, whether you lost someone or just because we realized we don't need to be in San Francisco anymore, but we can't, afford this high living. And so, but now, and it felt good at the time, but now I look back 4 years later, I'm like, what have I done? So I would have much rather been on autopilot from 2019 in and just like living life and having everything be the same way. I mean, sometimes the most simplest thing, like, well, not a simple thing, but like buying a car or something is like a million times harder now because of percentage, like inflation and interest rates and so forth. Like I keep holding on to my leased car. I keep extending it because I can't get a good deal because the interest is so high now. Do you know when I bought a car in 2020, my interest rate is 0.06% from them. Now they want to give you 7.9, 8.9%. So no, we're not in a better spot. We were not. It's harder now. And to say we were in a better place 4 years ago, we weren't, because how do I say this? I just feel like what we're experiencing now is a product of what happened 4 years ago. It's not. Yeah.
But we're still better off. I mean, I don't get how people can say that they were better off then.
Well, I think it's funny too, whenever you're like, well, we were all locked down. It's like, no, we weren't. People in Texas were not locked down. The pandemic as we know it in New York and California was not a pandemic. And I'm saying this with family in Texas who were like, why are you wearing that mask? And I'm like, y'all are crazy. Like but it wasn't real for them. They didn't happen. And that's when you look at these people, that's half of the population that elected Trump, if it wasn't all the popular people. So I think it's such an echo chamber of like who you're talking to, Brian, because people, like the reality is that not everybody was locked down.
So nothing changed for them. Nothing changed for them during that year.
Nothing changed for them.
Kate's exactly right, man. I had to travel a fair amount during those years, 4 years ago. And the major cities had one experience, and the rest of the country, the vast majority of Americans did not have an experience that looked anything like ours. Mm-hmm. And second of all, you guys are when somebody asks, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? They don't go into their head and think, well, where was I March of 2020? It's like, oh, right. They're not doing that. They're having an emotional response in which they say, my life feels harder than I remember it feeling in the past. That's all that means.
All right. So let me ask you this. Going back to Texas. Okay. So what was the death rate like in Texas then? I mean, did they lose? They had to have lost a lot of people, since I know they didn't believe in vaccines then, if they weren't believing in masks. So what was, as far as you know,
everybody, it's not everybody, but it's like, if you look at who was getting the vaccines, even in New York, I had friends who were saying, and even like, they were Austin, for example, a friend in Austin went somewhere outside of Austin to go get the vaccine because they're like, nobody in this small town is getting the vaccine. And, the same in New York State, and the same if you go, to more rural areas of California, but it's, we're just living in such polarizingly different places.
You're too American.
Yeah, but now I feel like we're catching up in the places that we're living differently than those Midwestern red states and whatever. We're catching up to them because based on, listen, I'm always going to be pretty much Democratic. I'm going to be Biden. I'm never going to vote for Trump. So don't get me wrong with this. But like, now it feels like, at least in my social circle and family, people who got the vaccine, no one is getting it anymore because of the way the government has sort of changed things. I know that when I tried to get the most recent vaccine, I went to CVS and they were like $260, please. And I was like, excuse me, it was free like last time. And it was just the way that the government was doing things, and certain insurance wasn't covering it anymore and the government wasn't covering it anymore. So I had to but then I went back to San Francisco and I got it for free at Kaiser. But people, the government had made it like a little more difficult. Like they weren't covering tests for a little bit anymore, and then they were again. And I have family members.
They're not again. I just got in on the last day. I got tested or scheduled to come tomorrow, and it's the last time. It was like, today's the last day if you want to get free tests.
See, and that's insane to me because people are people, and we're over it. But if you make it easy for them, then it's okay. But as soon as you make it not easy, because I was the same type, I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not going to pay $200 for this at CVS. That's insane. So I think like the more liberal voters and the people who believe in science, I mean, we're very busy now, and we're a little bit lazy, the new generation. So like, if you don't make it accessible for us, we're just not going to do it. And that is sort of unnerving because now we're in like, oh yeah, that was 4 years ago. Everything's in the past. But if we keep acting like this, it won't be in the past again,
Exactly. Well, I've been fighting a respiratory virus for a little over 3 weeks right now, where I can't, it depends. I mean, it was for the first 2 weeks, I couldn't breathe out of either nostril, and I blow my nose and nothing comes out. So I finally went to urgent care, and they said that there are about 100 respiratory viruses that are floating around right now, and there's literally nothing they can do. They gave me antibiotics. They go, but these aren't going to do anything. They said take Flonase, but it's not going to work. But but we'll give it to you anyway, so you feel like you're doing something. And
I'm right there with you.
They say it's got to run its course. They say it's just got to run its course. And I wonder how much of that is because of the fact that, we've stopped masking and we've stopped, people are not getting their boosters and all that stuff. I'm just wondering.
Oh, well, for sure. I mean, they talked about the flu going down 99% when we were all like, locked indoors and so forth. But I'm right there with you. So I don't know. I'm very confused and I get very angry at my care at Kaiser. But I mean, that's nothing new. That is just, I mean, I'm 44 and I was only diagnosed with ADHD like 2 months ago. And everybody's like, why did it take so long? I'm like, I have Kaiser. And things take a little while around there. But, the thing is, I was never that sick. I never got sick. I was very healthy. I am sick all the time. And same thing, they don't have any answers. And when they don't have any answers, they just sort of like brush you off because, you take test A says, oh, negative, you don't have that. Okay, well, we did what we know to do. So they brush you off. Yeah, but I'm still sick. I still can't breathe. I'm still getting constant migraines that feel like sinus infection, They give me the Flonase thing. I'm on a bunch of different, medications. I've done antibiotics. I've done steroids to try to clear this up. Nothing
works. No, they said nothing's going to work. That's what they told me. There's nothing they can do. Nothing's going to work. You just have to let it run its course.
And I wonder if I have long COVID and that's a part of it too, because, I got COVID in March 2022. It's funny. I've always wanted to make a Hallmark movie about this because I caught COVID in Hawaii the first and only time. I'd be like, COVID in paradise. Like that is what I want to do. But I still don't have any feeling in my entire body. 2 days after
in your entire body?
Yeah. I mean, you could pinch me, you could punch me. It's a great time to commit a hate crime. Like you could punch me, you could do anything. I won't feel it.
All right, now let's show of hands. Who's had COVID here? Everybody's had it. Okay, how bad was it for you guys?
It wasn't bad when I had it. It felt like an annoying cold at its peak. It felt like a really annoying cold. Persistent, but I'll tell you, if what I've had after it is long COVID, it's a million times worse. So that's why I hate when anybody says, oh, it's just a cold. And if you have like a vaccine, you're just going to feel like a cold because you don't know what the future brings from it. I think everything I've been suffering from is a result of the COVID.
Result of that. That's what I wonder because mine was like a cold. Kate, how was yours?
The first time when I got it before the vaccine, I was like dead to the world for 3 weeks.
You got it before the vaccine?
Yes, because I went to Texas for Thanksgiving because there was a death in the family earlier and we put it off. They put it off. I was like, I'm going to go outside. I was tested when I left. And then, of course, by the time I got back home, I had caught it and I was very safe. But anyway, it was awful. And I had such bad diarrhea that I broke my toilet seat. People were like trying to come by and take care of me. I'm like, stay away. It was so bad. Nobody needs to know all that. But I mean, and then I was mad at everybody because I'm like, y'all are so selfish. Like, I was safer in New York. You know what I mean? Like I would have been way safer in New York, but I just, there's so many other things at play than just, I mean, I'm from Cancer Alley, you know, I'm from the carcinogen coast. People can't breathe all the time. They're dying young, the pollution, we got other things beyond the infectious diseases happening.
Justin, how was yours?
Wasn't bad. I did lose my sense of taste and smell for like 4 days, and that really flipped me out. I can manage, feeling sick. But when I lost my sense of taste and smell, I mean, it's one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had on this planet, because you don't realize until you literally like cannot smell anything, just how scary and kind of bizarre that is to walk in and it's like you don't smell food, you don't smell if anyone's used the bathroom, you don't smell if there's smoke, you don't smell anything.
I would love if I couldn't smell when someone's used the bathroom.
It's a very trippy feeling. But I would be like in a room and like with my son, and I'd be like, it's like, why am I? It's just weird to me that like if he farts, I can't smell it, and that like feels like some sort of like weird like attack on me. Anyway, it was a very.
And he feels cheated. That's the worst part of it. It
was a very weird experience. I did lose like 5 pounds just eating raw broccoli and oatmeal and just getting cut for like 5 days.
I was going to say that was my upside. That was my upside too.
But when I around like the third or fourth day, the idea that it might not come back, like I was really teetering on a bad emotional place.
I didn't have that. I just had a bad cold.
I always like knowing how everybody's COVID experience was. I always just am very interested in it, just learning about it and learning about the pandemic. But, sometimes I hate the idea of asking people how it was, because so often you get that like, oh, it was just a cold, or it was just this and that or whatever. So then it makes people feel more comfortable about the idea that they might get COVID because it won't affect them. But the problem is, that's the thing. We're thinking about, oh, well, it wasn't so bad for them, it wasn't so bad for them, but it's bad for other people. Like, this is my dad. You know what I mean? So, like...
Those are your dad's ashes?
Yes.
You keep them on your desk?
Yep.
You're gonna keep them there forever? You're gonna scatter them at some point, or just keep them on your desk?
It's got to weigh down all those notebooks.
You're going to burn for that. You were going to burn.
My mother's dead,
You're
Ron.
going to burn in the fires of hell.
All right.
My dad sat there through a lot of Zoom comedy shows, and sometimes I'm like, I'm sorry to hear this one again, Dad.
That's no way to honor your father.
Yeah, no, this room here that I'm in is kind of like my office. And so my desk has a lot of like kind of the treasured memory things, right? Like it has this like mug with pictures of me as a baby and stuff like that. So this is the best place for him now, since this is like still a transitionary place living in.
So he's there with your collectibles. Your dad is there with your collectibles.
Well, it's the place where I see the things that I'm going to see the most in the apartment, and then I'm going to like remember my dead cat is here too. That's
a lovely rationalization. Let me move on to this. What is the one thing, I read this today, the one panic purchase that people bought during the shutdown that they don't regret, they love, and they say they're never going to stop using? There's one item.
What is the
one thing that they bought?
A bidet.
Very good.
Is that right?
That's it. It's a bidet. It's a bidet.
Wow.
Because of the toilet paper shortage, they say that bidet sales went up fivefold, and people love them, and they've become evangelists for them. The people who love them won't shut up about it. I got one, and I just didn't care for it. I'll just leave it at that.
My son, I don't use it. One. He loves that. I don't know if my son is gay or not, but I do know that for his birthday, he asked for a Chanel blanket, a box of chocolates, and a bidet. And I was like, okay, that's one way of coming out.
He
loves it.
I don't particularly care for bidets, and I don't know if it's a package, a part of a bidet, or completely separate, but I hate heated toilet seats too.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
Yeah.
it just feels like someone was on there for a half hour and you sit down. It's like getting on a bus and someone sat there. I don't like it. I'll tell you, for us, it was a panic, but the first thing we bought during the pandemic was a new couch. We're like, if we're going to be sitting on a couch in the living room much more these days, we might as well have something ultra comfy and ultra, supportive. So that was our panic buy.
And the thing that people regret the most are Pelotons. That's the thing that people regret the most.
You can't give them away now.
No, you can't. You can't. And I think they're just about out of business.
No, and my wife, we got one for her. She absolutely loves it. But I mean, I'm so glad we didn't buy one retail.
I mean, does she use like the
every day?
I'm talking about the trainers and all that stuff.
The classes are great. Yeah, the classes are great.
Yeah, and then they had that horrible PR blunder where they let Sex and the City use it.
I'm not sure.
And Mr. Big died on it. He got a heart attack and died using it. It's like, did you guys read this script before you told them they can use your product?
Well, you don't have to. I mean, they didn't ask them or anything. Nobody.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they asked. I'm sure it was a product placement. I'll bet anything was a product placement.
I'm curious now.
Yeah, well, I'll have to do some research and find out. Let me see if I got. Oh, okay. We'll end with it. This is my favorite story of the week. Before she died, Ruth Bader Ginsburg helped establish the Dwight D. Opperman Foundation to give an annual award to recognize women of distinction. And so in the past, Barbara Streisand has gotten it. Queen Elizabeth II has gotten it. This year, for the first time, they allowed men to be included. And so this year's recipients were named last week. And here's who they named: Elon Musk, Michael Milken. Now, if that name's not familiar, Michael Milken, back in the 80s, spent time in prison for securities fraud. That's what he's known as, a securities fraudster. Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News, and Sylvester Stallone. And the only woman was Martha Stewart. So those are the people who they named. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg's family, furious. They said, take her name off of it. We want nothing to do with this. Take her name off of it. Same thing with her friends or colleagues. There was a tweet by Barbara Streisand saying she was so honored to receive it, and it's an affront to everything that Ruth Bader Ginsburg stood for. Yeah. To name Elon Musk and Rupert Murdoch, and what in the world does this have to do with women who inspire and who have the women who've distinguished themselves in American society? So they have canceled the ceremony, and they're not going to hand out the awards this year, and they're going to rethink it.
It's a weird group of people when you're pulling for Sylvester Stallone. Hey, who do we have to surround this guy with to be like, oh, I hope it's Sly?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to throw men in, I mean, they shouldn't, but if you want to throw men in there, there's many more men of distinction and who are inspiring. You could even put Jimmy Carter or somebody in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that, right?
Absolutely.
It definitely doesn't sound like anything Ruth Bader Ginsburg would have went. Or, you could take it in another direction, too. You could do trans people in there, like women who are now living as men. And that seems like something more along the way of like what Ruth Bader Ginsburg would stand for than Elon Musk.
And Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, exactly.
And Michael Milken, really? Well, it's like, well, I'd like to have been a fly on the wall during that discussion. When people were throwing names out, who should we give the Ruth Bader Ginsburg award to this year?
What an odd group to be.
And Martha Stewart, another felon who has rehabilitated her image. But she's hanging out with Snoop, so now she's cool. We've forgotten that she was involved in securities fraud.
For me, I think the bigger question is like, this foundation, because I was looking at the Opperman Foundation, like what is it exactly? I think so many people use these. They probably at one point had Ruth involved. So they're like, how can we exploit this well-known name? And now that she's gone, I don't know the history of the award, but
the history is she helped found it. She knew Opperman and helped him in some way.
Okay, so obviously they've transitioned past it and it's backfired. But it's like anytime you're trying to exploit those names, you might want to make sure that the person is in line with who they stand for. And they could have made a new, for like most alienating figure, like a new, right? Like what is the new angle to this? So we can like, not offend her people and then still give an award to Elon because we want that controversy. They probably wanted buzz and they wanted to be, I'd never heard of them. They wanted to get buzz. Look, everybody's talking about them. CNN, all the, who knew what they were before?
I'd never heard of them before.
They're
now
funny.
I know.
They're funny.
Now
They're like
I know who they are.
a narcissistic, egomaniac and give, I mean, it's
two narcissistic egomaniacs, two convicted felons, two felons who were convicted of federal charges, and Sylvester Stallone.
Wow.
I didn't think about that for a minute. I mean, and again, I'm a fan of Sylvester Stallone. I mean, so people, so watch the documentary Sly on Netflix. And he's really a brilliant guy. I've been a fan of his for years, since I found out that he was a writer, and what a deep writer he is. He's really a deep thinker. He's played characters that aren't the most, intelligent or articulate. Rocky Balboa is not. He's got a lot of heart, but not a lot, not a lot upstairs. But Stallone does. And people confuse the character with the actor, which shows what a good actor he is. So I don't have a problem with Stallone. Well, but quite frankly, based on what this was supposed to be about, I don't think there should be any men at all. It should be all women or men who have done things, gone over and above for women's rights or women's inclusion or something like that. If you're going to have a man, then that's what the man should have done.
And look, both Murdoch and Musk have they've left a wake of women in their in their trail. So it's just like, multiple marriages, both of them. So they do support women, right? No, totally support them financially.
On Monday, because Trump can't come up with the $440-something million he needs for his bond for the fraud trial on Monday. Tish James, unless he comes up with it, and there are 30 underwriters who he's gone to, to put up the money, have said no bank will lend him any money. So one of two things is going to happen. Either, and this is the thing, I read a couple articles today, opinion pieces, people are really afraid that he's a national security risk, because he's brought Paul Manafort back on his, he announced yesterday that Manafort is on his campaign now again. And Manafort spent years working for Russian oligarchs and for dictators, that he'll get it from some foreign government, in which case, what are they going to want if he's elected? But what's funny is I heard somebody tweeted out that, the things that, she can start seizing his properties, that they hope that she seizes Trump Tower and turns it into an abortion clinic. That just tickled me. There's his former press secretary, Stephanie Grisham, named the properties that she said that they should seize because these are the ones that will drive him insane. And among those, she said 40 Wall Street, Mar-a-Lago, the Bedminster Club, which is where he had Ivana buried, because there's a tax break if you're a cemetery. That's why he had her buried on the golf course, because you can get a tax break.
Hey,
if it's a cemetery.
He's a clever guy. You got to give him that.
Trump Tower, those are his babies, she said, and any property with a golf course would absolutely devastate him. Any property that he takes got a golf course. So there you go. So we'll see what happens. I'll bet he comes up with it, but the scary part's going to be where it comes from. So where's everybody playing? We'll start with you, Justin. Where are you?
I am focusing right now on actually writing a one-man show. So I am back on performing here for a little bit. I have a couple storytelling gigs coming up. But I don't have those dates in front of me. I'll share them next time. There's months and months and months out anyway. But okay. Yeah, I'm kind of focused on the page right now.
You need any help or advice, holler at me.
I will.
Okay. Katie, where are you?
Going to be at Legos in Times Square next week. It is a West African place that I am now hosting a show at with. There's a producer who asked me, and I'm co-hosting it with someone. But
that's cool.
I've got other stuff, but I'm working on the screenplay situation and writing a bunch as well.
Congratulations. Congratulations on the screenplay. And fingers are crossed that it gets sold, that you cut your deal. So Ron, where are you? Are you off now since you've been traveling for a month?
Not at all. Well, everybody, if you're listening from the SFA area, I'm headlining Punchline April 9th, 7:30. Please get your tickets, punchlinecomedyclub.com. And if you're around, I've got so much going on. March 29th and 30th, I'm in Paso Robles and San Luis Obispo. April 5th and 6th, I'm in Dallas at Dallas Comedy Club. What else do I have? I've got Minneapolis, St. Paul, April 25, 26. I've got Escondido, California, April 17th, 18th. So please go to Ronn Vigh, RONNVIGH.com. And if you happen to be listening and you're coming to Vegas this week, this gig was made for me, everybody. I am opening for Puppetry of the Penis.
Oh my
Is that
God,
still
that's
around?
a great gig.
I haven't heard of that show in years.
It's still around. I am just doing comedy and no tricks. But I am there this Thursday through Sunday. Puppetry of the Penis here in Las Vegas. And I'll be doing 20 minutes opening the show.
I haven't heard of that show. I remember when it was in San Francisco, probably 20 years ago. And for those of you who don't know, Puppetry of the Penis is, they described it as penis origami, if I remember correctly. So I never saw it.
Because I haven't heard or seen it in 20 years, I looked up its website, and there's a whole section on the website for auditions, and it says you don't need any prior experience, just send in a video in your body, and then we'll teach you, and then you can do an audition. And I'm like, well, if comedy doesn't work out, maybe I'm a penis puppeteer from now on. Like, whatever, however you make the money, you know?
So basically you're making balloon animals with your penis. That's basically what it is. You're tying balloon animals with your penis.
Exactly.
Who books that and what's it pay? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I think we lost Katie. Katie dropped out. So Kate Robards and why am I'm having a brain fart? Justin Ronn, thanks for being with us. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for listening and for watching. I should mention, I've got a couple of things that are coming up. If you are in, they're all Bay Area things. My solo show, Not a Genuine Black Man, longest running solo show in Bay Area theater history. I stopped doing it for a long time, and it's the 20th anniversary in April. So I'm on a 20th anniversary tour. I am at Marin Shakes at the Marin Shakespeare Company, me. But I'm there with the show this Saturday night. Then throughout the month of April of 2004 is when it premiered. So I'm going to at the Mars in San Francisco. So I'm bringing you back there on Saturday nights in the month of April. April 20th is a real special show because April 20th is three things. It is the 20th anniversary of the show. It is the 1000th performance on April 20th. So it'll be 1000th performance. And it's also my birthday. So all those shows, if you want more information, ticket information, just go to my website at briancopeland.com. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you want to support the show, a couple of ways you can do it. One is by subscribing. Either if you're listening to it, go to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on, and leave us a 5-star review because that helps people to find the show. You can also subscribe at YouTube. And for the video version, and on YouTube, we're trying to get 1,000 people to subscribe. We're getting there, but we need 1,000 in order to do the show live. So right now it's recorded on Wednesdays, drops on Thursdays. I want to do it live so that way we can get your reactions and answer your questions and things while we're gabbing up here. So you can support us that way as well, and also just by spreading the word, tell anybody you know any way that you possibly can. So I will check you out next week. Until then, be kind to your neighbor. He knows where you live.